Well, good afternoon, guys. I'm in Dixie National Forest, and today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to talk about every plant species I can find on the top of that little micro plateau there. Now, normally I just walk around and talk about a few species I can find, but today I want to talk about every single one I can find on top of there. Be completely comprehensive. So let's just jump right into that. I think we can see a few plants that might already be easily identifiable to you, but there might be a surprising amount of diversity, so let's just see. Firstly, before I even get on top, this is Arctostaphylos patula, probably the most widespread Arctostaphylos species, at least in the this region of the United States. I guess Arctostaphylos uva ursi is more widespread overall because it's found even in the Old World. But now that we're on top, you can see there's a few more of those plants growing up here. It's known as the Greenleaf Manzanita. It's a genus with most of its diversity in the state of California, like in the California floristic province. You get a few species further east from there. Now, firstly, this tree is Pinus ponderosa, also known as the Ponderosa Pine. It's a rather common species of pine tree in the western United States, especially in this forest. You can see just how dominant it is. You see all those tall columnar pine trees are Pinus ponderosa. It has long needles, which makes it easier to identify relative to the other pine species you can find here. Sorry, that's a lot of focus. But this one probably won't get so tall because it's growing in a tough rocky spot that's quickly eroding. Now we also have this plant here. This is Cercocarpus ledifolius, a member of the rose family, in particular the Drydoideae subfamily, which has only 4 genera, 3 of which are endemic to the western North America. The other being Purshia, which I'll talk about a little later, Camobatia, which is found in California, and then Dryas, which is found widespread like in the Old World as well. It's a very tough plant that likes growing on tough rocky spots, but this might be pushing it even. The soil isn't just super rocky, it's practically solid rock for one, but it's also very limey and calcareous. It's derived from the Claron Formation, which is pretty much just limestone that's quite crumbly. That's why Bryce Canyon is eroding so fast. If you didn't know that Bryce Canyon erodes quite quickly relative to other rocky spots, for in a human lifetime you wouldn't notice much change. Speaking of Drydoideae, this is Purshia tridentata, which is, again, a member of that same subfamily of the rose family. Now, as the name implies, the leaves have 3 teeth on the tips, just like Artemisia tridentata, which is not related. So it makes me wonder why they developed this adaptation. Maybe just, I don't know, sometimes evolution just does weird things like that and they don't matter enough to evolve away, but that's sort of a just so story. So I like to try and think about why that happens. So I think we're up to 4 species so far. Okay, this grass most likely is just Poa secunda. I don't know that for sure, it's just an educated guess. Poa secunda sort of looks like this, and it's a very widespread and common grass species in Utah. In fact, I think it's actually the most collected species of plant from the state of Utah, at least in the herbariums that were used to make the Utah Flora book. It's a good book. If you really want to get into Utah plants, that's the one you need, though. The author, who tragically passed away earlier this year, had some funny ideas. Like, he was very sort of almost against using DNA to figure out the relations of plants. So he retains all the old families from the Cronquist classification, but that's all aside the point from here. This, I actually don't know what it is. I think it might be Xanthisma grindelioides. It certainly looks like a grindelia, and like that plant, it seems like it's not going to be producing any ray florets, which should give it away that it's a member of the family Asteraceae. And it's pretty common on here, actually. This is not my first take being up here, so you know. I checked it out beforehand so I can make this video a little more smoothly. I had a previous take that didn't work so well, but whatever. This is Euphorbia Fendleri, or at least I think it's Euphorbia Fendleri. I'm not entirely sure either, but it's definitely a Euphorbia. If I pulled a leaf off of it, you'd see some sap bleeding out of it, no doubt. See how close I can get to it. Really small plant. That's about how big it is. It just sort of grows as a mat. And Euphorbia Fendleri is also known as, I think, Fendler's mat spurge. So, well, there you have it. Common in desert areas as well, I guess, as some higher altitude dry places like this. Because this area is probably doesn't get more than about 20 to 25 inches of rainfall, or sorry, precipitation a year, because that includes melted snowfall. So it's not super dense forest, but it probably gets a little more summer precipitation than most of the Wasatch does. What else is there to talk about? Okay, this plant. This is Juniperus scopulorum. At least I'm pretty sure it is. There's a chance it could be Juniperus osteosperma. I'll figure out for sure later. But Juniperus scopulorum is also known as the Rocky Mountain juniper. You don't see it so commonly in the Wasatch. It seems like it's kind of rare there. It's more of a juniper found in mid-elevation areas rather than in the drier foothills. But it seems like it's quite a bit more common here, for sure. Which again makes me worry that it might just be Juniperus osteosperma, but I'll figure out for sure in a second. If I'm wrong, you know, it's okay to be wrong sometimes, as long as you can try and learn from your mistakes and be smarter every day. Now this conifer has actually messed up my first take because I thought it was Pinus flexilis at first, because there is a specimen of that up here, but I think it's actually it's Pinus edulis, the two-needle pinyon, because it's got two needles on all its little fascicles. Now, fun fact about the pines is that you can distinguish from other members of the family Pinaceae by the fact that their needles occur in fascicles, which I'm not going to be able to show too well here, but sort of some very highly modified papery leaves sort of wrap around the needles at their base, which are also basically just leaves. But what's interesting is that the sort of bundle of needles isn't just like a little bundle of needles, it's a shoot of determinate growth. So it can actually potentially in some cases develop into whole branches of their own. They're tiny little shoots, not just leaves that like to grow together. I know that might sound like the definition of a shoot to you, but there's a difference. Now what else do we got? Oh, this one. Okay, I almost forgot about this one. I think I'm up to maybe 7 or 8 now. This is Lithospermum, Lithospermum multiflorum. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Again, it's hard to be completely certain, which is why I avoid talking about some plants sometimes, but I'm pretty sure this is what it is. It certainly looks like a Lithospermum with its flowers and its growth form. I highly doubt it's a rhodorale, which you find in the Wasatch and other places quite widely, but this would be a more common species around here, according to the records. Remember Boraginaceae, and it's a name. Some people call them Stoneseeds, which is basically just Lithospermum in English. But I think a more traditional name for them is Puccoon, so you can call them that as well, but funny sounding name, but I like it. Now this little guy is another member of the rose family. This is Amelanchier utahensis, it's known as the Utah serviceberry. Amelanchiers is a genus of serviceberries. This one's growing quite tiny. They normally grow as large shrubs, like sometimes up to like over 10 feet tall. But this one seems to be struggling here. Again, just because it just probably got lucky to be able to grow here, but or rather unlucky because it's going to have a hard life to grow up tall. Now that is just another big Ponderosa Pine. It's always nice to see them. What else? I know there's some other things that are worth talking about here. I gotta find a way to get. Ooh, let's turn on the ISO. Over that way. This video might go longer than one single take, but I must carry on. Sorry, Cercocarpus. I swear there was a Pinus flexilis up here, but I gotta find that. See, this is a tiny area that has about at least, like, it seems 10 species of plant that I can find so far. Oh, now what is this? I didn't see this the first time, or this is the first time seeing this one growing up here. See, if you pay, there's so many things that you can find if you just pay more attention. But I really don't know what this is. It looks like it's maybe a type of okay, let's look for a second. Remember Boraginaceae? It's probably like an Oriocaria or Cryptantha, but I really just don't know which one it is. I'll try and figure out later, but if I can't, I'm sorry, but it is another species growing up here. Again, this is why I'm sometimes very hesitant to try and talk about species of plant, but I just, I don't know, or talk about every single plant in an area because I just don't know them all. Here again is one I don't fully know, but I think this is actually Linanthus pungens. It's certainly either a species of Linanthus or Phlox, which are cool little plants. But Linanthus pungens is very interesting because it can grow sort of like this, but also almost like a shrub, which is very interesting. I'm going to run out of time on this clip. I can only film clips of 10 minutes or less, at least at these settings, so I'm going to stop it right now. Alright, well after some careful searching and checking every conifer I can find up here, I have found my Pinus flexilis, or limber pine. Now this is habitat where they can grow. and I swear I had saw one, and I'm glad to see I was not hallucinating. These trees have longer needles than the Pinus edulis, and they have more per bundle. See, that is like typically 5 per bundle. That seems to be only 4, but that's what it has to be. Pinus flexilis. Classic, very hardy plant. Grows in very similar habitat to Great Basin bristlecone pine, which there is growing not on here, but very nearby. This plant has the bottle brush-like branches. But yeah, not on this little mountain, which is what this is the topic of this video. This little flat-top mesa, the tiniest mesa ever. But I did find a couple other plants which I want to talk about now. And I believe these are the last of them. Firstly, I saw this little guy growing right here, which I'm actually a bit vexed by. It smells kind of sagebrushy, but it doesn't look like any sagebrush I know, because it doesn't have the... Certainly the most common you'd find here is tridentata, but I have not seen any of those growing that close to here. I mean, there are some basin big, I know, not too far down the canyon, but I think this might be, it looks kind of like a Tetrademia canescens. That's my only ever guess I can make. I mean, maybe a winter fat. I don't know how to tell them apart. I only vaguely remember what some of these look like, but Tetrademia canescens seems to make some sense, and I think it's recorded from this area at least. But yeah, I'm a little confused too. I mean, I already said I am. Maybe you guys aren't. If you guys have a better guess for what it is, let me know. And finally, there's this plant. This is a species, I'm pretty sure, of Cercocarpus. It looks like it's having a really hard time growing here because its leaves are so small. They're normally a bit larger when they're young. Also may not be young anymore. It does have opposite leaves that look like those of Cercocarpus, so I'm guessing it's probably either ledifolius or Oreophyllus or Oreophylla. I can't remember what everyone's called. I'm sorry, I gotta remember these names better. It's okay to be wrong sometimes about them or get them a little off, but I feel like I do it way too much. But either way, I'm pretty sure that is every single plant species I can find up here. I could search for longer and maybe find one extra, but I think that's pretty good. Actually, it seems like there's, if I'm not mistaken, that's between 12 and 14. I wish I kept better track, but I'll put a final tally up and some stats at the end. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.